Hi everyone, I'm Doug from DigiPen in Redmond. In this video, we'll discuss the relationships between colors and how to use color theory to make a game look nicer. When you play a video game, the colors you see are created by the electronics in the screen. Every color it shows you is a mixture of red, green, and blue light. Red, green, and blue are called the primary colors of light. Combining these three primaries in different ways can produce any color you can imagine. For example, the brown color of this shoe is made by mixing a medium amount of red with small amounts of green and blue. This yellow flower is colored with large amounts of red and green and almost no blue. The gray used for this helmet is red, green, and blue mixed in equal amounts. If you combine red and green, you get yellow. Combine green and blue to get cyan. And mixing blue and red gives you magenta. If you put all these colors on a circle and blend the colors that are next to each other, you end up with what's called the color wheel. This wheel contains every possible hue, and it's a tool that is commonly used by game artists when choosing the colors they use for their art. When an artist wants somebody to stand out, they'll often design the character using colors that are far apart on the color wheel. Colors that are very different like this are said to be in contrast. Using highly contrasting colors like these can make a character more visible and memorable. In Scratch, instead of using a color wheel, we use a color strip. You can imagine that this strip is what you would get if you unrolled the wheel and laid it flat. It still contains all of the hues from red to yellow, green to blue, violet back to red again. But there's more to a color than just its hue. We can also change how vivid and light the color is by changing its saturation and brightness. Watch what happens to Abby's shirt as we decrease its saturation. It loses its vividness. When a color's saturation is set to 0, it becomes completely gray. Now look at the effect that we get by changing its brightness. It gets darker and lighter. Reducing the brightness all the way to 0 makes the shirt completely black. We can make it white by increasing the brightness all the way to 100 and decreasing the saturation to 0. If we play around with the hue, saturation, and brightness, we can give Abby any shirt color we like. Now let's spend a little time learning how to use the tools here in Scratch's costume editor. First, here's the color picker. You'll use it with a few of the tools in the costume editor, such as the brush tool. This tool allows you to paint patches of whichever color you have chosen in the color picker. You can change the size of the brush here. This can make it faster to cover more area or easier to draw details. Next is the eraser tool. You can use this to correct mistakes or to put holes in a drawing you've made. Speaking of mistakes, if you do something you regret, you can click the Undo button here to fix it. If you want to bring that change back again, you can click Redo. You can use the arrow tool to select and move individual parts of your drawing. You can also rotate them and change their size, like this. There are other tools as well, but we'll focus on these ones. Feel free to explore and experiment to learn how every tool works. Let's explore Scratch's costume editor with a little art project. Your task is to design your own dinosaur. Be bold, be creative, and be sure to use several different colors in your drawing. We'll begin with a new Scratch project. Begin by adding a new sprite. Normally, we would do this by clicking the Choose a Sprite button, but this time we'll do it a little bit differently. Move the mouse pointer over the Choose a Sprite button, but don't click it. In the option list that appears above the button, select Paint. This opens the Costumes tab with a blank costume for our new sprite. We'll begin by drawing the body of the dinosaur. First, select the Brush tool. Then choose the body color with the color picker. What color should your dinosaur be? We'll go with this blue color, and we'll play around a bit with the saturation and brightness. What color will you choose? Now it's time to outline the shape of the dinosaur's back and belly. Something high in the middle, like this, makes it feel kind of unique. It's sort of an egg shape, isn't it? Of course, yours can be whatever you like. And don't forget, if you make a mistake while drawing your dinosaur, you can fix it with the Eraser tool or the Undo button. After creating the outline, fill in the center with the Fill tool, like this. Now let's give our dino a tail. Use a slightly different color from what you used for the body. We'll go with something a bit more on the green side. Now draw the tail however you like. We'll put a little ball on the end, kind of like what an ankylosaurus has. Then, after drawing the outline, fill in the middle with the Fill tool. Next, let's move on to the neck. Again, let's take a different color. We'll go the other way in the color strip this time, more in the purple direction. Your dinosaur can have a long neck or a short one, and it can be raised high or held low to the ground. We'll give our dinosaur a wavy neck like an Apatosaurus. Don't forget to fill in the middle with the Fill tool. Now the dino needs a head. Choose a new color. Let's go with something totally different, like this orangey yellow. What color will you choose? Remember, picking colors that are very different from one another is a great way to increase a character's visual contrast, so that it stands out more and is more memorable. Now, on to the shape. This dinosaur is going to have a tall crest at the top of its head, like a Parasaurolophus. As always, fill in the interior of the head with the Fill tool. Now let's give this beast some limbs. We'll start with the hind legs. Choose a new color for them. We'll go with this dark purplish red color. Remember to make the thighs extra big. Once your outline is complete, fill in the inside with the Fill tool. Now we can make the other hind leg on the opposite side of the dinosaur's body. There's an easy trick for doing this. Select the arrow tool and then click the leg you've just drawn. Now click the Copy button here and then the Paste button. Now we have a duplicate leg. Now let's make the color of the duplicate a little bit darker. Next, we need it to appear to be behind the dinosaur, not in front of it. This is easy. With the leg selected the way it is now, just click the Back button up here. This moves the leg to the back layer of the costume. Now you can move it around with the arrow tool until it looks like it's in a good spot. There we go. Before we can move on to the front limbs, we need to pick their color. We want to use the same color as we used for this hind leg here. We can do this by selecting the Brush tool and then opening the color picker. The button in the lower right corner is called the eyedropper, or just the dropper for short. Click the dropper and then click the rear leg. Now we've got this old color back, so we can move on to designing these front limbs. Do you want your dinosaur to walk on 4 legs or 2? Maybe its arms have big claws on the ends, or maybe they're good for helping the dino climb up trees. For our dinosaur, we'll go with stubby little arms like this. Fill in the interior with the fill tool when you're done. Now let's duplicate the front limb the same way as the rear one. Select it with the arrow tool, click Copy, and then click Paste. Now open the color picker again, click the dropper, and then click the darker colored hind leg. Now click the Back button and move the front limb into a good position. Let's fill in some details. First, we should give this dinosaur a face. We'll start with big white eyes. Open the color picker. We can get white by setting the saturation to 0 and the brightness to 100. Draw the first eye and fill it in. You can draw the second by hand, or you can copy and paste it. After you've done the whites of both eyes, open the color picker again and slide the brightness all the way down to 0 to set the color to black. Now fill in the pupils of the eyes. If you want to make the dinosaur look extra goofy, you can point the eyes in different directions. You can fill in any other details you like, such as eyebrows, nostrils, or scales. It might be helpful to use a smaller brush for things like this, so set the brush size to 5 or so before you add these details. It looks like this dinosaur is complete! If you change your mind about the colors you've chosen for any of the body parts, you can select that part with the arrow tool and then give it a different color with the color picker. Explore the range of colors. How does the dinosaur look when most of its body has a light color? Or a dark color? Or if it's mostly warm colors like reds and oranges? Or if it's mostly cool colors like blues and greens? Experiment to your heart's content. Let's recap what we've learned in this video. First, we learned about the 3 primary colors of light: red, green, and blue. Then we looked at the way that a video game mixes these colors in different amounts to create browns, yellows, grays, and all other colors. Next, we learned that an artist can use color contrast to help design a memorable character who stands out. Then, we discussed the tools in Scratch's costume editor and learned how to use them to pick colors and make drawings. Finally, we applied this knowledge and these tools to design our own dinosaur. In the next video, we'll talk about themes, what they are in a game, and why they're important.